Welcome back to Soulcast, y'all. This is another episode of Majestic Mondays. Last week, we talked about strength, right? And we talked about how strength doesn't mean you are unaffected. And this week, we are talking about protecting the life that you are building because you're building something right now, whether it's visible yet or not. You're building something, and not everything can come with you. Let me expand on that. Growth requires protection, and not in a defensive way, but more in an intentional way, I would say. Because everything doesn't deserve access to you. Not every conversation, not every environment, not every version of yourself. And in order for you to protect yourself and the life that you're building, you have to create boundaries. And boundaries are not about control, not at all. Boundaries are about clarity. They're about you saying, this is what supports me, and this doesn't actually support me, and choosing accordingly based on those boundaries. A few boundaries that I had to place in my life was where I'm spending my time and who I'm spending it with, and how it contributes to my wellness or my better being. And mm, this is, about perspective, but not all boundaries have to be communicated. And this is a different aspect of me, because I'm big on communication, but I'm also learning how sometimes you don't have to explain things. Sometimes, not to say it is what it is, but what's understood doesn't need to be explained. And I've had to learn how to walk away from certain people. And I've had to also learn when I'm doing that, if it's worth communicating and if it's not. So using my discernment. And there are some things that I used to not want to communicate because I didn't want to set those boundaries because I feared what that would make me look like. I feared that I would be losing something and I wanted to sustain and attach to everything. But the key word was attach. I attach a lot due to my, fear of abandonment. And I would always want to keep the peace. I didn't want to cause any problems, all these things, right? Which ultimately led to like people pleasing. But the lack of setting boundaries and the real message behind people pleasing, it's actually selfish. People pleasing, it's like you're catering to your discomfort of how it would make you look. It's not necessarily about the other person. So when you're setting boundaries, what I've learned lately is that it's not about control. I used to come from a control state. People pleasing is part of controlling. Um, and to a certain extent, by the way, because that can be debatable, right? But when it came to setting boundaries, um, I had to learn that it wasn't about control, right? I couldn't control the other person. I couldn't control the environment, but I can control myself and I can control what makes me feel good. I can control what I am around and what fuels me and what caters to me, all the things, right? I can control me and my reactions and what I allow to affect me. And there are moments where I knew some things just weren't aligned and I stayed anyways. And I stayed out of comfort. I stayed out of familiarity. I say it out of not wanting to disrupt things. So that comes where the people pleasing is. And every time I ignored that feeling, I felt it in my body. I felt very disconnected. I felt very like, okay, this doesn't work for me. And so being able to communicate those boundaries allows you to protect the life that you're building. It allows you to protect your growth. And that is something that is important because when you're growing, you are releasing versions of yourself that no longer serve you. And those versions have different beliefs, have different attachment styles, different communication styles. Is completely different from the version of you that you are wanting to become. And without those boundaries and without you really staying aligned with things that are going to contribute to your growth, you can get pulled back in just a quick second. Um, and that pulls you back into environments or patterns or behaviors that you are trying to release. So, protecting your growth is incredibly important, completely important. So, I want you to think about this. What in your life feels out of alignment right now? That could be anything. Where are you staying when you know you've outgrown it? Take a moment and really think about that. It could be staying at a job that no longer suits you and it doesn't make you happy anymore. It just pays the bills. And that goes based off your beliefs and your values, right? Um, Staying in a relationship that no longer is loving or aligned with the version of who you are now. Um, Letting go of friendships that just don't make you feel connected anymore. Moving out of your current apartment to another one, placing yourself in a better environment. Really think about what feels out of alignment and then think about what you can do to place yourself in a space where you can feel aligned again. Yeah, take that with you. I want you to protect what you're building, even if it's still becoming, even if it's not visible, like, especially if it's not visible, protect what you're building because that is completely, completely, completely important. It's more important than anything because you want to sustain that growth. You want to continue to elevate your life in the ways that you want, and some things just cannot come with you. And that's part of protecting. And that's okay. That's okay. So I appreciate you tapping in this week. And I want you to continue to push through. And I want you to continue to rest. And I want you to continue thinking about what's going to contribute to your growth. Because next week, we're talking about taking up space and how you are allowed to. Thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to you all next week.